Greetings, everyone. Jill Robinson here from TRG. I'm so glad that you have chosen to join me and us for this conversation and discussion about our future resiliency in our field using and focusing on recurring revenue models like subscription. I'm joined today by my colleague Grant Pauly, who's going to be keeping an eye on chat. I urge you to participate via chat today and to also look at the questions that he has pre-populated in our Q&A. You can be having conversations sort of back and forth with each other about that as we go. Grant will join me at the end of our time together for questions and answers that I have made time for. So let's get started. Subscription and a resilient future for the arts. Recurring revenues, in fact, is the focus here, and subscription is a part of it. It is lower cost, renewable, and sticky income at a time when I and we at TRG believe very much that that is part of our resilient financial future. And yet, we can't talk just about a resilient financial future without recognizing and acknowledging the headwinds that are in front of us in all of the regions that you all are in. They're political headwinds. Certainly here in America, we have big changes coming that will have big implications for us in every way, politically, also economically. So there are, in addition, economic and societal, social challenges and headwinds that we all are facing. And I dare say that reality is not going to change and may, in fact, get more acute. It makes this conversation about what will sustain our businesses, your nonprofit arts and cultural business, well. But I have to advance to you something I've been thinking about in addition to those headwinds, and it's one that I see in our sector specifically, and it's something of a mindset. I've begun to think of it as a nonprofit mindset that I think has always been with us a bit, but I hear it with more frequency. I feel like it's gotten more rooted, more deep in our words and our beliefs. Now, I want to acknowledge your businesses are nonprofits, and there are, in many cases, ferocious gaps between revenues and expenses in this post-pandemic time we live in. And yet I have been reading in the media and hearing a real interest in and focus on solutions that are out there. Funding and funders, government, corporations, we can't possibly survive without that help, is what I read and hear. And I know that's true. I know there's a gap. And I also know that the priorities that foundations and government and corporations have they're governed by a lot of things right now. And is arts and culture at the top of that list? Is it near the top? Is it going to be a priority, a big enough priority to have an impact on your organization's needs right now? I'm not sure, but I can tell you one thing. You have around you a group of people who, through their feet and use of time and investment in you, they have said, yes, what you do and offer matters. And those are your ticket buyers, members, and donors. These are people who said, yes, I care and I want to be part of what you're doing. And they exist in your database. Your database is an asset that you and your team can manage and invest in for your financial resilience and your relational stability in your community. Today, I hope to inspire you and urge you to consider how you and your teams can focus here, make investments so that you're able to provide to your community, maybe not be a drain on your community. Now, I recognize what I've just said there. And I also get, you might say, we don't have a nonprofit mindset, Jill. We're working our tail off. And I know that's also true. But I am in conversation regularly, as is our team, with you and our field. And these are the things that we are hearing regularly now. And I'm curious whether you recognize this as a nonprofit mindset or something different. I hear things like we can't possibly increase prices. There's no way we could keep up with inflation. Our customers and our patrons would never pay it, and we can't be the only ones in our market to increase prices. And one of my favorites, or a surprise, I suppose, Jill, it's not ethical. It's not even moral to increase prices. Is that a mindset that you hear in your hallways and in your meetings? What kind of mindset is that? I also hear we don't have the money to invest, not now. We've got to save. We can't take risks. Our teams are smaller. They don't have the experience, and we just can't be expected to perform like we have performed before. And shows are harder than ever, more difficult than ever to sell. Right now, TRG, we just need to fill houses with as many people as we can at whatever price they will pay. We just need people to come in our doors. What is that mindset? I'm curious about the mindset that will sustain us, that will fuel our financial stability. And I'm not sure these beliefs and attitudes maybe are going to be what gets us there. And finally, the one that I'm going to focus on today, TRG subscriptions. We're not at all sure that that's part of the way that we're going to get there. One of the provocations or questions that Grant has put in the Q&A is about subscription and the death of subscription. Subscription has been dead for decades. This is a marketing tactic, I want to remind us all. And there are lots of reasons why. I hope you will respond to this question. I want to hear today's reasons if you're here. So I suspect you're interested in talking about subscription. You may believe in it mightily. Many do. But the reasons that we hear are tied to expense and hard work declines. Our patrons, our customers just aren't buying it. I find myself wondering if, in fact, when we look out into our concert halls or our performance venues, if we just might not like the people we see who are buying those subscriptions. If, in fact, what we want are people who are different. And as a result, we have feelings about this marketing tactic. So today, I hope, will be this for you, a bit of a record scratch for all of these beliefs and attitudes, for this mindset, because the next 3 to 5 years are going to require different from us. And I want to showcase some examples and inspiration for how we might behave differently. It starts with this. Grant is going to put in the chat a link to my recent 3-part blog series that was inspired by a conversation I had with the guy who started SUBTA, the Subscription Trade Association. Paul Chambers is his name. That association researches and organizes businesses who are in the recurring revenue industry, which I'll define here in a minute, but which I think you know is businesses who are focused on the retention and growth of recurring revenue. And every year, for 9 years, they have hosted a subscription trade or a subscription summit. And this subscription summit happens in Dallas and gathers thousands of people who are working for and employed by small businesses up to the major brands that you're familiar with, the Amazons, the Panera Breads, the Uniteds and Deltas, the Washington Posts and New York Times. Those businesses that now depend on customers and are built around customers who pay annually, monthly, and whose retention and ongoing lifetime value is a focus. This gathering is representative of, as you see here, what's projected to be a $3 trillion industry. So the first record scratch is subscription dead? It's clearly not. Whether you read Forbes or attend this summit, the subscription industry, the recurring revenue industry is alive and thriving. And the SUBTA Association organizes recurring revenue schemes and programs into 6 categories. We are solidly engaged in 3 of them. The first one is this one. They call it Subscribe and Save. It's where customers buy in bulk and get a discount. That's very much like the subscription models that we're familiar with. Membership is the second, paying a recurring regular fee for access. And the final is streaming. Now, many of you, some of you in this room are still doing it, but many of you during the pandemic experimented with paid and free streaming. It's expensive. And yet, for those of you who continue to do it, you know what it does to expand geographic and demographic attributes of customers. It is part of our future, I dare say. And today, as a sector, we are involved and participating and driving programs in all 3 of these categories. These are the 3 remaining of the 6. Subscription box, whether it's wine delivered at home or clothing, digital software like Spotify, Netflix, or HubSpot, and media and publications like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and more. As I talked with Paul and listen now regularly to podcasts and read blogs from people who are involved in this industry, they talk about something we talk about at TRG, the sticky customer. And I want to remind you about the effect of sticky customers on the math of your database. This is a theater client of TRG's, and the single ticket booking households on average at this theater company are investing annually $54 at a marketing cost of sale of 20 cents on the dollar. This is low. This organization operates in a fairly small community. If you operate in a bigger one, you have more competitive forces. You likely see 30% or more on the marketing cost of sale realities right now. It's the retention rate that I want to focus on. 23% of these single ticket buyers are coming back in the next year. This is not on the main recurring revenue for this theater company, but of the households that are able to be converted to subscription, who decide that they want theater in their lives, you see how the cost grows. This is one of the complaints about subscription. We cannot afford to invest here. We need income now at low expense. But look what happens to retention. So now we're starting to see recurring revenue. And when we get these subscribers to renew, the math just improves even more finally when those buyers become multi across the organization. In this case, it's donation, could be a gala, could be a class. The more frequency across the business, so to speak, a customer gets, the more recurring revenue we see from them. And that's, as a proportion of your database, what we are focused on today, growing the proportion of customers who behave to the right of this grid. As a reminder, the definition, this is from an online teaching organization, but the definition of recurring revenue, consistent income businesses can earn. Yours is nonprofit mostly, but yours is a business too. I want to not forget that. Businesses earn this income every month and every year. So I'd love for you to put in chat because I'm interested. I know what I hear in conversations today, but I'll be looking at this after our webinars. What is your belief today in the ability of recurring revenue programs to have a positive impact in your future? Let's call it your near-term future, the next 3 to 5 years. What is your belief today? Put it in chat, share it with me. We'll crack that open and talk about it as we wrap up today and in the future. But I want to now move from belief and our bellies to some data that is available to us on an increasing basis because of the benchmark that TRG began during the pandemic. Grant is going to put in chat the link for you to sign up. This is a free program that enables you, once the hooks are set up, to benchmark your organization's ticketing and philanthropic performance compared to your genre, compared to your region. And it's through this data and the aggregation of it that we're able to look at trends. And I want to surface three or four trends that do have something that do provide important context for our conversation about recurring revenues. And the first is this: we have a growing post-pandemic, growing reliance on new audiences. So this data that I'm going to advance is from the most 3 recent calendar years after the pandemic, 21, 22, and 23. And we're going to first look at North America. So to orient you, the first group of data is the percentage of booking households, and the bottom is revenue. And I want to draw your attention to the thought bubble there. Prior to the pandemic in North America, 40% of your databases in the benchmark were new customers. Today, that number has grown to 47%, but the proportion of income coming from those new booking households, those new ticket buying households, is just 43%. So our reliance has grown on them, and they are delivering less commensurately than their participation. There are differences and similarities for those of you in the UK. The good news, I suppose, is that the reliance, again, the thought bubble here, the reliance on new customers has declined since the pandemic. We have been working hard to send this message in the UK, and it is not just us. The need for and the desire to grow recurring revenues is growing in the UK, and yet the proportion of income coming from this reduced number of new ticket buying households is still much lower than what's coming from active households. So first, we are still overly reliant on new, expensive, and highly unstable customers. So second point, we're not keeping the customers that we do, the new customers that we do get. So in the last completed full season prior to the pandemic, in the benchmark, on average, 62 to 80% churn. Regional dependent, genre dependent. That number has grown, and it hasn't changed in 22, 23. We're in the process of updating that now, but the numbers have grown. And this churn problem, it's always been a significant issue in our sector. And it's getting worse. And my fear is that if we don't start alongside attracting and rebuilding the databases that have taken a hit, I know they have, but if we don't start digging into the retention and maintenance of these customers, I fear we will be drains on our communities. We won't produce, participate, and lead our communities in the ways that we must. So if we're going to talk about this, how should we be talking about it, Jill? And that's where I want to go to now. First, I would say to you, we must be focused on talking to and about our customers, the people who are raising their hands and joining us in our performance and theater spaces. And when we talk about customers, we think about customers in a way that we can measure their behavior. RFMG, if you're familiar with TRG, it's an equation for stickiness, for lifetime value, for loyalty. And I want to break that down before I begin to describe some examples that I hope will inspire you about how RFMG can play a role in resilient income in your organization. The first is R is recency. Think about this as renewability. So think about the different kinds of customers you have, or the different marketing campaigns or schemes or offers, even development, the different membership levels. What is the annual renewability or recency of those customers? They will be different depending on the channel that they sit in or have come through to your organization. And this is a benchmark fact. 80% of new buyers don't return within 2 years. They're expensive to get. They're expensive to re-get. The next letter in the formula is F. R and F are flywheels to loyalty, flywheels to recurring revenues. F stands for frequency. So we're looking for same season frequency. The more frequently I participate, engage, the stickier I am. 80% of active ticket buyers buy only once or participate only once a year. That's not frequent enough to create the recurring revenues we need. Focus and investment can change that. M is monetary. And while we may not love hearing it, it is true. The more a customer invests, the stickier they are. And finally, G. We want Jill's investment with your organization to be consistent or growing. And this was an interesting factoid that came out of the benchmark. Fewer than 10% of donors increase their giving more than once in 5 years. We over-fixate on acquiring, and we do not invest enough in nurturing, retention, and upgrade. RFMG, it's the equation around recurring revenues, and it has to fit in the realities of a post-pandemic world. There's been a lot of research about changes in consumer behavior and attitudes. All 5 of these apply to arts and culture, and we have to fit our RFMG realities into these also realities. I want to look at numbers 1 and 5 first. New conveniences and new accountabilities. Convenience, whether it is your phone or your phones, your telephone systems, your websites or your front of house. Customers today insist on, especially younger customers, on a no friction environment. Grant is going to make you aware of, and it's included at the end of this presentation or deck also, a link to executive convenes. The next one coming up for chief executives and their teams is in Boston in October and Newcastle in England in November. At Convene, we're talking about these realities, especially what does it mean to show up with the customer in mind, with convenience and their journey through our organizations in mind. But I assure you, we are not focused enough on how we engage and what we ask our customers to do. This, I believe, is part of our nonprofit mindset. I hear us say, our customers understand we're nonprofits, and I'm telling you, they don't care. You're competing against the restaurant, the park, the cinema, the sporting league. We've got to get our game lifted here. And number 5, our customers today have a new set of accountabilities that they're holding us to, not just about this, but also about points number 2, 3, and 4. And this is the good news. Point number 2, 3, and 4 say, I spent a lot of time with myself and my family. I now want to invest in myself with new escapes out there. I'm going to be careful about where and how I make those. And they're going to reflect, number 3, me, my focus on me and my well-being. And they're going to, number 4, focus on my priorities. And I'm clearer than ever about those now. So again, at Executive Convene, we talk about how we see it be possible and crucial to be asking your customers, what are their priorities? Let's not make assumptions about this. And then let's make sure that we weave their priorities into, if we can see the links, into our invitation copy, into our experience, and make sure that those two interests are joined up. Learning from each other is why you're here. Learning from each other and also learning from others outside the field, like this research I've just shared, and like some of the things that I learned from the Subscription Trade Association. So in my conversation with Paul, there were 4 things that I thought were particularly relevant for us that I want to share with you today. The first of which is Paul told me, and they publish annual research within SUBTA and also highlight research from other companies that are doing recurring revenue company research. And they all conclude this statement: a retention obsession is required to sustain recurring revenues. Obsession. And the best subscription brands, Paul says, generate 80% of their income from existing customers. So I want you to make a note of that. How do you define existing customers? And if you were total up the income from them, what is your number? How does it compare to the best of the recurring revenue brands? The second, we just saw this, service expectations are higher than ever. It's the number 2 reason, according to 2023 data, for subscription and membership cancellation, but it's a huge opportunity. It's the number 1 reason that that subscribers and members stay when they renew. Huge opportunity for us in the nonprofit arts and cultural sector. Number 3, not all customers are the same. But what is true today is that demographic tribes and cohorts understand themselves better, group better, have pride about their cohorts. And if I don't see myself in your photography, in your marketing copy, in your scheme, your offer, what we will send you and provide links post this session to SUBTA's research. But Gen Zs and millennials have very specific campaigns and kind of offers that they respond to that are different than boomers and Gen Xers. How is yours and how are yours different? And finally, creating community within those tribes or within these groupings. I think it's in the second blog that I wrote, Paul introduced me to a subscription in a box company that is that sends vinyl recordings, and they've created a community with this with these subscribers. And if I get a record album that I don't enjoy, I can tap the community and trade albums. Imagine if our subscribers had the same community and they weren't calling our box offices to exchange, but they were exchanging tickets with each other. These are the things that I've learned from SUBTA. I want to introduce you to a colleague and friend of mine, Michael Frisco, who is the Vice President of Marketing for the Cincinnati Symphony. And Michael, you recently attended and went to Dallas for the Sub Summit. And I wanted both to introduce you to this group as someone who is a believer for certain in the subscription model. But while you were in Dallas, you learned some things from the folks out there in the recurring revenue industry that you think apply to the Cincinnati Symphony. Thank you for joining us. Can you share a couple of those thoughts with this group today?
Sure. Thank you. I think the biggest thing I learned was just showing that point that it is thriving. It's a large, vibrant, busy conference. I think thousands of people there, thousands of vendors, or hundreds of vendors at least, and all these different solutions and topics across all of the different types of subscription. I went there with, in particular, looking for application to a membership program. We'll start here in a couple of months. We're launching what is essentially a Netflix-style monthly membership program, looking to see, well, what can I learn? And I came back with some immediate takeaways, just very applicable things such as we need to have a pause option when people go to cancel. That's a way to catch people. That's a way to prevent you from having to go back and just reacquire them. Really, they can just pause. It can fit into their life better. I mean, think about snowbirds or something like that. That we need to make it easy to cancel, and that's not the first place we might go when we start to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, what that number 2 reason, or there was a reason about it's convenient. That definitely becomes a selling point then, as opposed to a liability to let people cancel, especially with pause. And then just from a technical standpoint, it seems one of the largest contributors to membership programs experiencing churn is because of just credit card declines because of expiration dates. It was clear, we need to be proactive about essentially killing the opportunity for those declines to happen. And there are technical ways to do that. And there are certainly resources and abilities for us to be proactive and not just have to accept that that's going to happen. So, I mean, those are certainly immediately applicable. I came right back to the team here, and those became must-dos.
Yeah, the membership, we've got examples of it coming up here, Michael. Membership and the credit card expiration issue is something that is currently, I think, is a box office responsibility or becomes a marketing responsibility to chase after. And there are technical solutions that you shared with me that I hope we can start to adopt in our field that make it easier and more automated for our teams so it doesn't require the heavy lift. Thank you, Michael. You participated in this through something that SUBTA makes available called the Hosted Merchant Program, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that, what did that do? Yeah, say a bit about that.
Well, I mean, the decision to attend was one of the quickest I've ever made from understanding that this is a thing that exists to going, based on the blog post. There's a hosted merchant program. We are, many of us, or if all of us are direct to consumer subscription models. And so for those companies interested in joining or in attending, essentially it's you sign up and agree to go into a series of essentially like speed dating. So 15-minute sessions. I think I met with 10 different potential vendors. There's a whole system of matching up your interests with what they're looking for too. So that was really helpful. It made those conversations a little more relevant each time. And in doing so, and there's a number of things that you have to do, you get reimbursed. You don't have any registration fee, and you get reimbursed for a large portion of the essentially a lot of the travel and hotel type expenses. And even though I had committed my budget for most of the conferences and things we might do as a team for the rest of this fiscal year, it made it very easy to go check this out.
Yeah. It's quite a different conference experience than we have in our traditional arts and cultural conference. Michael, thank you. I look forward to your continued participation in this session today, and thanks for sharing your experience at the Sub Summit this year. And as we transition now from that conversation to one that is about the examples of where and how this can work, I want to start with this thing that's dead, the subscription, and say to you, it is not. It has never been dead. We have let it die in some cases. And I don't mean to be overly glib about that, but more often than not, that is what we see. Here are 4 cases in North America, 4 organizations that during the pandemic, because of their investment, their staff focus, campaign investment, campaign duration, have seen growth. The Toronto Symphony, double-digit growth every year. Most recently completed season, 26% growth in traditional subscription income, 30% growth in packages. The Ballet West has quadrupled their packages, traditional fixed seat packages, and revenue throughout and during the entirety of the pandemic. The Charleston Symphony on pace to have their best year in subscription history for the 24-25 season in history. And the Grand Theater in London, Ontario, is up 30% compared to pre-pandemic times. We'll talk a little bit about in more detail about how that happens, but it can happen. It is happening. And I want to instill some belief in you that it can happen in your organization too. The Minnesota Orchestra is doing some interesting things with the research the consumer research that I shared earlier. They're asking their customers, their new subscription customers, why you subscribe. We're often so obsessed with people that don't. We forget to ask the people that do. Top 3 reasons. The top 2 won't be surprising to you, I don't think. Programming. The people who invest in these frequency, in essence, programs do it because they like what you're doing. So programming is number 1. Number 2 is important to be reminded about. The sub-to-data tells the story over and over again. Benefits are a huge part of the reason why I become a member, I subscribe. Look at how your single ticket offerings may be undermining your subscription offerings. In our desire to get new people in the venue, we may be offering less expensive and better seats to our single ticket booking households than we are to our members or subscribers. Gut check that. But finally, this was the third, commitment to self-care. And so you'll see this is a copy of their digital campaign. You'll see reinforcement of these reasons for subscribing in their campaigns, benefits, and you deserve it, and quick reaction to positive feedback from a customer that says, do yourself a favor and go, and language that says, make it about you. The results of their campaign, which include on-time and extensive campaign work, but they've noted a difference as they've begun to incorporate the reasons that their customers are saying they're buying into their language, like you see here. The National Ballet of Canada, like so many of us, got down to or got moved away from some of the practices that they knew worked best in subscription, and post-pandemic have begun to re-put patrons at the center, discovered that prior to the pandemic, or no, during the pandemic, they had allowed these things to happen, not communicating discounts, limiting the flexible package options, not providing the biggest discount to the biggest package holders, and then made changes. You'll get a copy of this deck, so you'll get to see this language that's very customer focused in this copy of their brochure to the right. But the results are hundreds of units ahead of last year, doubling acquisition, overwhelming positive patron feedback. We are succeeding in subscription growth. It can happen, and we've been testing recurring revenue programs for decades at Arts and Culture. I want to remind you of the things that we've learned related to recency, frequency, monetary investment, and growth, as well as our need to invest. The fixed subscription, here's what we've learned. Here's what you can expect. It does come with high marketing cost. It does bring high pull, high retention rates compared to other kinds of programs, but I want you to hold that thought. We also have long utilized and made available choose your own, where the customer chooses and curates their own package. This comes with a lower marketing cost, but most often the reason for that lower cost is because CYOs come in packages of 3 and 4. It's a simpler, easier offer to make than a 6 or 10. So the lower the requirement for engagement, the lower the cost, but also the lower the retention. So in CYOs, your retention will be based on package size, and that is also true with fixed seat. Frequency drives retention. Frequency drives R. R and F drive the whole recurring revenue math. We've tested flex tickets, comes with a low cost. It also has low retention unless I use those tickets. So whether there was a telemarketing firm in the 90s called TeleUnique out of Indianapolis, some of you may remember them. They had a practice of calling you back after you used your tickets, or calling if you hadn't yet used them. So to increase the likelihood of retention. And coupon books. We've been doing this for a long time. Is this a recurring revenue program? I'd be interested in hearing from you if you found it can be one. We're also experimenting today with new programs. Ross Binney, I'd love for you to join me. Ross is the Chief Brand Officer for the Cleveland Orchestra. I want to show first a quick 30-minute video, 30-second, sorry, y'all, 30-second video that his team created that describes the rewards program.
Our new Cleveland Orchestra Rewards program brings you closer to the music and the musicians than ever before with exclusive content, unforgettable VIP experiences, and rewards. It's easy to join, easy to use. Sign up and start earning points for what you already do. Share your opinions. Read, watch, or listen to our content and watch the points rack up. It's never been more rewarding to be a Cleveland Orchestra fan. So join now, earn points, get rewards, enjoy amazing musical experiences. Sign up at clevelandorchestra.com/rewards.
Okay, so Ross, this is a program that now has around 30,000 members, and you become a member for free. There's a proportion of those rewards participants who are active. You told me prior to our time today, it's around 25%, but that 25% behaves really differently than your regular single ticket buyers, don't they?
Absolutely. They, just at the base level, you know, this program is instituted to get frequency by any means necessary, and this is certainly our flagship right now. Single ticket buyers who are active in the program, i.e., they haven't just bought a ticket where they get signed up. They actually participate in a quiz, or they watch a video, or they transact, or they upgrade seats, buy and spend those points are coming 25% more often than those who are not active in the program, and their spend is actually 38% higher than those who are not.
So frequency and monetary investment. So the question is, this is in the context of a program that we're studying alongside you that you call the Center for Future Audiences. And as we think about this as a potential recurring revenue program, these data points are interesting. I don't know if there's any other soundbite or two you'd provide, Ross, before we move forward, but I appreciate your being here.
No, I just to summarize, to say, you know, in the last 5 years, our audience has gone from 64% Gen X boomer silent to 59% millennial. We're majority millennial. We are a majority single ticket. We have been majority single ticket sales now for 10 years. And in order to get them to come back, these kind of programs are great. And the number one thing people want to do is upgrade their seats, you know, have special occasions, really get value, and they're buying our content too, using their points. So it's early days, but so far so good.
Yeah, you're innovating, and you have been for the past 10 years. Ross, thank you so much. I'll look forward to your comments and chat and participation here as we wrap up today. Thanks so much for joining me and us. Okay, so a couple other models that fit within this recurring revenue conversation, and membership is something that Arts and Culture has been participating in museums for decades. What we've learned from clients like the Denver Art Museum is what we know, that what we've been saying before, frequency matters. So if a member to a museum visits with frequency, their retention is higher. And the Denver Art Museum began to organize around reminding in email and direct mail and phone calling. What does that mean to the performing arts? I would say to you, it should be alongside, not instead of. There are two organizations that we've known for some time who've been doing this work, membership work, and launched it at the start of or prior to the pandemic. So we've got a little bit of data here. The first is the Phoenix Theater, who launched All Access Pass alongside their fixed seat and other subscription. The All Access Pass is a $39 monthly with benefits and the ability to attend with frequency. And what they have experienced is that alongside their Campus Pass, which is a traditional subscription, their Big Six traditional seated, and their Flex Pass, like we described earlier, they have had a stable patron base of subscribers. Their All Access Pass has grown significantly, and they have had growth in frequency of tickets sold through these passes. So a positive story here, and All Access Pass users are attending more than 12 times a year compared to the benchmark field and theater, which in the 22 to 24 period, frequency, as you see here, has declined in the benchmark and on average. All Access Pass members for the Phoenix Theater are attending with frequency. The Arkansas Symphony has been growing recurring revenue via membership. Theirs is called the concert membership, and it's a $9 a month access to an unlimited number of concerts. You can see the terms here and the ways in which those patrons can participate through this campaign and this program. It runs alongside their subscription campaign, and the benefits are able to be described very clearly. And like Michael described, this organization, which launched this membership program prior to the pandemic, has been tracking both new memberships. This program has grown alongside membership. They also have been tracking churn. Now, their answer to this churn rate and credit card expiration reality is the requirement that members commit to 6 months. I think that sounds a lot like subscription. I'm curious about how technology and the decision to not have friction helps these membership programs grow. And I'll tell you what, if you live in the UK, you have been implementing membership schemes and offers for a long time. I dare say it's because the UK gave up on subscription a long time ago, which we're working hard to change. But in the UK, there's a lot of membership data, and in the aggregate, in the benchmark, we see a single ticket booking household will invest £60 on average annually, a multi-event buyer £89, and a member ticket buyer almost £140, which is obviously much more predictable, much more income, and we know more predictable. We have a case study that's available. Grant will put it in chat on our website about the folks at Theatre Royal Plymouth, who have really focused on this membership as a recurring revenue program, as a recurring revenue scheme or driver. They've seen growth, as you just see described here. They have created clear benefits by tier, and looking at the M in the RFMG equation, the monetary investment compared to non-members in single ticket buying is considerably higher across all of these levels. In Manchester at home, they offer a cinema on campus, and in 2023 launched a film pass. Prior to having the film pass, they didn't have data capture. They had no way of measuring household frequency. And with doing this under the terms that you see here and with the renewal rates that you see here, they have experienced they are able to see in the data rather that more than 60% of their pass holders are attending 3 times a month, and a little bit more than 10 are attending more than 7 times a month. Finally, Chichester Festival Theater is doing something that is about growing the F in frequency, identifying those people in their database who are and have been attending frequently and offering them a priority window to buy and incentives to buy. And you see here, more than 8,000 more tickets sold, £300,000 through the invitation to an identified group of people who are exhibiting behavior and saying, we're going to give you some benefit, acknowledge you because we see you, and give you some access that others don't have. These are examples of the programs that are working in the regions in which we operate. And really, the common theme here is stewardship. The stewardship and attention paid to these programs. And I'm going to outline for you here as I wrap up from right to left some examples of the ways that you might think about it. So after you acquire customers and you're working to grow them from a first-time ticket buyer maybe to a multi-buyer, you might be asking yourself and experimenting with how could pricing or priority access encourage you to become a multi-buyer. If you become a multi-buyer, the invitation might be to membership and to make that member more sticky, or subscriber. Auto renewal. Auto renewal does work in the fixed seat subscription business as well. Once we've gotten you to become a member and we're seeing you renew that activity, might you upgrade? And what might make you or help you consider that might be expanded access to different inventory, access to different events or experiences. And finally, once I've upgraded, might I consider giving or other attributes? And a final note I'd put on this is that what we see in the data over and over again, especially for those of you who are Americans, because I have the capacity to give means nothing if I'm not already active. So stewarding and nurturing our customers is such an important part of growing this recurring revenue program. I'm happy to report that those organizations that focus in this way, like our clients, get different results. So when we look at attributes of RFMG in the benchmark, recency being one of them, what we see is that the benchmark average is that 43% of benchmark households have been recent since 2021. TRG clients have a different result. When we look at frequency, what's the percentage of your database that is frequent and multi-buying? 25% in the benchmark, 32% with TRG clients who focus there. And finally, the average price paid by the customer. Growth in the benchmark of price paid by single ticket buyers since 21 has been 3% on average, 14%. It's not inflationary keep up, but it is responsible business management that helps ensure that as we face these headwinds that are in front of us now, whether it's staffing or politics, resources and gaps, or socioeconomic realities, our focus here can have an impact on our businesses. Does the tactic matter? What does matter is that you and your team operate like smart operators. The tactic doesn't matter. Testing and learning matters, and using this equation of recency, frequency, monetary value, or investment rather, and growth, that if we're constantly looking at this equation, we'll learn, and we'll learn together. So let's learn together. Grant, I will love for us to be sharing the questions that have come in the Q&A or anything that you're observing in the chat that we should be talking to. Hello, there's your face. Greetings to you.
Thanks, Jill. Hi, everyone. I'm Grant. I'll just be facilitating what time we have for the Q&A today. I've been gathering up some questions as we went along. Thank you so much to everybody that submitted, and I'm sorry if we don't have time to get to all of them, but let's get started. Jill, Leslie shared a concern that 6 concerts per season may not be robust enough as an offer to appeal to subscribers. What would you say to Leslie's concerns, and what might be some easy ways to strengthen the offer?
More events. So some of you in this room would say, I can't believe Leslie said that. I think 4 is too much. So bully on you, Leslie. If you only have 6 events in the season, then consider what other events and attributes you might add. You saw in the Phoenix Theater, the all campus pass. So consider your campus of activities. The Arkansas Symphony saw membership pause happen during the summer because they're not running in the summer. So they added a summer low-priced event to the membership scheme, and it boosted membership rates. So get creative with other events and activities you might load in to grow frequency. I love the instinct, Leslie. Thank you.
The next question comes from Brian, and I'm just going to read it because I don't think I can reframe it any better. He said, I think that the artistic side has trouble being constrained by committing early enough to put subscriptions on sale and have a successful subscription base.
Yeah.
Not committing to a full season means subscribers are less confident and begins the route of self-fulfilling prophecy that subs don't work.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you said this. It is often true. If you, Brian, begin to, I don't know if you do, our clients launch with TBAs. It feels like anathema, but the longer we have to sell subscriptions, the more we will sell. So if you're working with TRG, we become the bad cops that say it doesn't matter. We've got to launch in February. We must launch even without those programs known, and we will let our subscribers know that they will be the first ones to learn. Your renewing subscribers, you'll be surprised how willing they are to go along with you. So we do have to get creative, but the more we push, the more we create a culture of commitment to these recurring revenue programs, and the more it changes behavior internally. I've seen it happen year after year.
Jill, what would you say to organizations who saw their subscription numbers declining even pre-COVID, or those who post-COVID, they may be seeing some growth, but they don't feel it's strong enough to have a sustainable model?
I would say, let's ask questions. The first question I'd ask is, what is the proportion of staff time and expense budget invested in the program? I would say, how early are we launching? How many events are in the subscription? Like Leslie's question. I would say, if I don't have the resources for subscription, what can I borrow from new acquisition? I would say, what's the conversation we're having at the board level about recurring revenues and the need for recurring revenues? Because I promise you, businesses that have recurring revenues are valued much more highly than businesses that don't. Your board members will understand this. Creating a culture of prioritization releases behavior and resources over time.
Paul mentioned that sub models tend to be yearly, not monthly. Is there a recommended way to structure the billing? I know Michael mentioned a Netflix model, but is there any right way to do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. The membership model tries to get at this a little bit, Paul. So it's monthly, and you get access to performances that are auto-renewed. The traditional subscription doesn't usually think about this, but I was having a conversation with a client yesterday where we said, what if we were to make a payment model that took this subscription and broke it into quarters or months? And how could we experiment with a monthly or regular billing cycle for the traditional seated subscription? I think you should just test and learn, is what I think. And the other thing that I want to urge you to consider is auto renewal for subscription. It absolutely works with a certain segment of your database. They will accept the auto renewal, and they will accept annual price increases as long as their expectations are managed and met.
That's a great transition to our next question, Jill. From Anali, I believe. We want to switch to auto renewals in the future, but struggle with our older audiences who specifically send in checks for payment and do not use email. What do you recommend is the best way to go about this?
Segment. So I would just challenge the assumptions. This is not fair, so forgive me, but there's a nonprofit mindset that says this is the way our customers are. I wonder sometimes if it's the way we are. So I just want to gut check that, not knowing you or your circumstances, but segment. If there's a segment who does checks, then honor that. And then find other segments who will respond to auto renewal. They absolutely will. Listen, everyone, I am so glad that we had this time together. I really want you to be inspired to say, yes, we can, because our field needs these recurring revenues to weather the next 3 to 5 years. Grant, Ross, Michael, Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you in Boston or in Newcastle yet this fall. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.